helping people change requires more than just telling them what to do. Welcome back to our second part of the Motivational Interviewing introductory series. As we already said, the evidence-based approach for helping people to uncover their inner potential for growth and change. In the first part, we have mentioned some of the common frustrations that most of the coaches in the fitness and nutrition industry experience in helping their clients to adopt some of the health-related behaviors. We said already that the coaches in the fitness and nutrition industry are very often puzzled with the questions like, why our clients often say that they will do something and then they end up doing something completely opposite instead? Why our clients are often pushing back against generally sound advice that we provide to them? And at the end of the day, why just people cannot do what we tell them to do? So in order to get a better understanding about our clients' behaviors, today we're gonna explore the 3 claims about the human nature in regards to the behavior change process that will hopefully, at least to some extent, explain some of the puzzling behaviors that we experience in our work with clients. So the first claim is that people have an intrinsic inclinations, propensities, towards becoming the best possible versions of themselves. Now, this tendency, although can be very often hidden within the person, is nonetheless deeply seated in each and every one of us, and only awaits the appropriate environmental conditions to be met in order to be optimally expressed. The second claim is that although people have a natural tendency towards becoming the best possible versions of themselves, people can often be ambivalent about the different paths that they can take on their journey. We're gonna show in the second part of a series that having a mixed feelings about the change, having a second thoughts about the change, is absolutely normal and natural human condition when it comes to behavior change process, which is very often unjustifiably pathologized within the fitness and nutrition community and is used as some kind of a proof that something must be wrong with the clients that we work with. And the third claim is that although people naturally want to become the best possible versions of themselves, people generally are very resistant towards other people telling them what to do in order to become that best selves. Which was just a very long way of saying that people don't like to be told what to do. So let's start with our first claim, which has an origin in humanistic psychology, especially what is important for us in the work of Carl Rogers, which says that people have an intrinsic tendency towards becoming the best possible versions of themselves. It states that the human beings already have within themselves that natural tendency towards growth, towards self-actualization, and towards fulfilling their human potential. Very often in the fitness industry, there is this notion that people are generally lazy and unmotivated to make positive changes in their lives. So in order for them to change, there is some kind of external pressure, in our case from the side of the coach, that needs to be applied to them. So it is the role of the coach to instill something on the client, to pressure the client, to tell the client what to do. It is the notion that when they're left to their own devices, people will naturally tend to work against their own best interests. Fortunately, nothing can be further from the truth. The human beings have already inside themselves the natural propensities towards growth and change, the natural propensity towards fulfilling their human potential. The only thing is that in order for that tendency to be optimally expressed, there are certain environmental conditions that needs to be met. To put it in the other words, in order for the environment where the individual resides in to be growth promoting, it has to be constructed in a way that satisfies certain basic needs of the individual. When those needs are met, human beings will more often than not express those natural tendencies towards growth and change. In order to make this a little bit more clear, we're going to make the analogy here that's quite useful with a plant. So there is a natural tendency of a seed to grow into the plant. As long as a certain environmental conditions that satisfies basic needs of a plant has been met. And those needs are needs for fertile soil, sunlight, and water. When those needs are met, the seed will more often than not grow into the beautiful plant. The human beings, same as the plants, tend to show natural propensity towards growth and change, towards maturity and fulfilling their human potential. As long as their basic psychological and physiological needs within the environment that they reside in have been met. So for the purpose of this series, we are going to focus on the basic psychological needs of the individual. And we are going to refer now here to something that is called the self-determination theory. The self-determination theory is a theory of human motivation that identifies three basic psychological human needs. When they are met, people show natural expression of the tendencies for growth and change. Now, those three basic human needs are needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. The need for the autonomy is the basic need of an individual to have a freedom of choice. It is a need of an individual to feel like a sole author of his own choices and decisions. It is the need of a human being to feel that his actions and his choices are a reflection of his own interests and values, and not a byproduct of some external pressure that he needs to comply with. It is basically the need of a person to feel like his life is in his own hands. The second need, the need for competence, is a need of a person to feel effective in his own daily action. It is a need of the individual to feel capable to overcome the obstacles within his own daily environment. It's a basic drive that motivates people towards goal setting, self-mastery, and learning new skills. And the third need within the self-determination theory is a need for relatedness, which is nothing more but the need of human beings to feel a genuine connection with the other human beings. It is our need to love and to be loved, to belong, and it is a basic drive behind our tendencies towards cooperation and pro-social behavior. So in a nutshell, the human beings have an intrinsic psychological need to feel like they're the sole authors of their own decisions and choices. They have a need to feel capable in dealing with their own external environment, and they have a need to feel a genuine connection with the other human beings. When those needs are met, human beings more often than not will express those tendencies towards growth and change. So we can make a claim here that inability of a person to express its own growth promoting tendencies is usually a byproduct of his inability to satisfy his basic human psychological needs. And in most cases, when we see the examples of maladaptive human behavior, when people are, let's say, behaving badly, it is usually a byproduct of a condition when people don't feel like they are sole authors of their own decisions and choices, when people don't feel capable in dealing with their own environment, and when people don't feel genuine connection with the other human beings. The way how motivational interviewing works is by creating that kind of a growth promoting environment within the context of a coaching relationship, by satisfying basic psychological human needs, which then leads to expression of those growth promoting tendencies. And how is that supposed to be done within the context of a motivational interviewing? We are going to explore in a much more depth later throughout the series. For now, I would just like you to remember that people have an intrinsic tendency towards growth and change. The only thing that the expression of those tendencies requires the environment that satisfies basic psychological human needs. And one of the goals of the motivational interviewing is to create that kind of a growth promoting environment within the context of a coaching relationship. And we're going to close this part with a quote from a founder of self-determination theory, Edward Desai, that says that you can't really motivate people. You can only create an environment within which people will be able to motivate themselves. Which just says that the role of the coach is not to instill something to people, to motivate people, to pressure people towards change, but to help people to uncover that what is already inside them by creating that kind of a growth promoting environment within which people will be ultimately flourish. In motivational interviewing, there is this inherent belief that client already has what it takes to make positive changes in their lives. And the role of the coach is to create that kind of a growth promoting environment within which those tendencies can be fully expressed. And this brings us to our second point, which is that although people have a natural inclination towards becoming the best possible versions of themselves, they can at the same time be ambivalent about the different paths that they can take on their journey. And the topic of ambivalence is kind of a central theme in motivational interviewing. Although very often pathologized in the fitness and nutrition world, the ambivalence is really nothing more but when the people have a mixed feelings about the change, when they feel two ways about the change. It is when the people at the same time want to change, but they also want to stay the same. It is when people at the same time have within themselves arguments for and arguments against changing. In order to understand the role of the ambivalence in the behavior change process, we will now refer to something that we call the stages of change from trans-theoretical model of change, which basically describes the different phases through which people go when they are on their behavior change journey. The first phase we call the phase of pre-contemplation, which is when the people don't even think about making any changes whatsoever. When the people move from that phase, they're coming now to the phase of contemplation, which means that people now think about making the change, but they're kind of having mixed feelings about it. And this is the phase of the ambivalence. People hold within themselves at the same time arguments for and arguments against changing. When people resolve their ambivalence, they are now in the preparation stage, which means that they're actively planning how they will make a change. After the preparation stage, there is an action stage. And if the people are maintaining their new habit for 5 to 8 months, we can say that they are now in the maintenance stage of change. So you can see that not only that ambivalence doesn't mean that something is wrong with the client, but the ambivalence is actually completely normal and unavoidable part of a behavior change journey. We can even say that the stage of ambivalence is actually a step forward in behavior change process, because it implies that someone moved from pre-contemplation stage when they didn't even think about making any changes whatsoever. In order for a people to move to preparation and action stage, they need to resolve successfully their ambivalence. Motivational interviewing has been made in order to help the clients to successfully resolve their ambivalence and move towards preparation and action stage of change. Now, it is very important that we know how to recognize when our clients are ambivalent. When the clients are ambivalent, they are usually expressing their ambivalence within the language that they use when they talk about the changes that they want to make. And the ambivalence is expressed within the client language, usually when the clients are voicing within the same sentence the arguments for and the arguments against changing. The arguments for and the arguments against changing within the same sentence are usually divided by the word but. I really want to go to the gym, but I'm afraid that all the people will be staring at me there. The part of the sentence where the clients are voicing their reasons for change, all the arguments for change, we call a change talk. I could go for a walk after I come back from work. The part of the sentence where the clients are talking about all the arguments why making these changes is not such a good idea at the moment, we call sustain talk. But I also just want to sit on the couch and watch TV. Both change talk and sustain talk are part of the client ambivalence. I know I should be eating more vegetables, but I just don't like the taste of it. I know I should be drinking less over the weekend. It's just that all of my friends are going to be drinking too. The clients are expressing the change talk whenever they are talking about their needs, abilities, reasons, desires, and commitments for making the change happen. On the other hand, the clients are expressing the sustain talk whenever they are voicing all the arguments why making these changes is not such a good idea at the moment. In motivational interviewing, we are paying a very special attention to that language that the clients use when they talk about the change. And we are strategically evoking the change talk from the client. Why and how we do that, we're going to talk a little bit more in a future part of the series. But for now, I would like you to remember that ambivalence is completely normal and unavoidable part of a behavior change journey. It is when the people are having mixed feelings about the change. They feel two ways about the change. The way how we usually address the ambivalence in the fitness and nutrition industry usually leads to resistance with people for the changes that they initially wanted to make. One of the main goals of motivational interviewing is to help the clients to resolve their ambivalence in a way that moves them forward towards the planning and the action stage in their behavior change journey. And this brings us now to our third point, which is that, as we already mentioned before, although people have a natural inclination towards becoming the best possible versions of themselves, they are at the same time very resistant towards other people telling them what to do in order to become that best self. Which was just a very long way of saying that people don't like to be told what to do. That experience of a negative emotional reaction on other people telling us what to do has been named in the literature as a phenomenon of psychological reactance. In general, people tend to perceive any unsolicited advice giving, any attempts of persuasion, as a threat to their sense of the autonomy and freedom. So in order to restore their autonomy, people usually tend to oppose the advice being given by either openly disagreeing and arguing, or by silently sabotaging, by telling they will do something and then they don't do it, or by doing something completely opposite instead. Now, the interesting thing is that when people are ambivalent as we already said, people already have their internal reasons for and against changing. People already have that internal dialogue continuously going on within themselves. So the moment we jump in and start arguing for change, telling people what to do, and start voicing all the reasons for change, people automatically start voicing all the reasons they already have against it. And the harder we push for change, the harder people start pushing against changing. That urge of helping professionals in general to jump in, to provide the solutions, to tell people what to do, has been named in motivational interviewing as a writing reflex or a fixing reflex. The writing reflex is nothing more but our natural impulse to jump in, to provide a solution, to tell people what to do, whenever we see that our clients are struggling with some problem that we know that we have solution for. Unfortunately, when people are ambivalent about the change and we jump in to tell them what to do and to provide the solutions, the most common and natural response of the people is to push back against it. Even when they know that the advice that we are giving to them is a perfectly sound advice for them to follow. So let's see how this might look like in a direct conversation between the client and the coach. You should go to the gym straight after your work. Yeah, I could, but it's way too much traffic at the time. Considering that you're having very high blood sugar levels, it is super important that you exercise at least 3 times per week. Yeah, I know, but I really don't have any time for exercise at the moment. The best way for you to lose the weight is to track all your calories for at least the next 2 weeks. Yeah, I know, but I really don't like tracking. You need to cut all the carbs after 6 p.m. Okay, I'll do it. And then she thinks inside herself, I'm not doing that. It seems that, like in all these conversations, the clients are already having the pre-prepared negative responses to any proposition that coach gives to them. It's like they're having the list of arguments for why making these changes that coach proposes are actually not going to work for their life at the moment. In coaching industry, we tend to label this kind of the behavior as uncoachable client. We are saying that the clients are having all these excuses because they want to avoid the hard work they need to do in order to reach their goals. The reality is that the clients are just acting out the negative side of their ambivalence. They are protecting their personal autonomy due to our tendency and natural inclinations to jump in and immediately tell them what to do. The reality is that the uncoachable client is not something that we get, but it's usually something we create by inappropriately reacting on the client's natural state of the ambivalence. Now you might be wondering, why? What is the problem with client voicing all the negative sides of their ambivalence, voicing the reasons for why making these changes is not such a good idea at the moment? Well, the problem is that what we also know from the research is that the language about the change predicts future change. Which basically means that the more clients talk negatively about the change, the more clients are voicing all the reasons against changing, the lower is the likelihood of their future change. And we are basically coming to one paradoxical situation that fitness and nutrition professionals, from their best intentions, by arguing and persuading people to change, they are literally making their clients to talk themselves out of it. And one of the goals of motivational interviewing is to help the clients to resolve their ambivalence, but by not coach arguing for change, but by inviting the client to argue for their own change. By letting the clients to voice their own reasons, their own abilities, their own needs, their own commitments for making this change happen. Why is this change important for them? Not why is this change important for us? We're going to talk in a much more depth how we're going to do that later throughout the series. But for now, I would just like you to remember that any unsolicited advice giving is usually perceived by the client as a threat to their personal sense of the autonomy. In order to restore their autonomy, the clients are usually going to oppose the advice being given. When people are ambivalent about the change and they hold within themselves both reasons for and against changing, the moment we start arguing for change, the clients automatically start voicing all the reasons they already have against it. And the more clients argue against change, the lower is the likelihood of their future change. And I will close this part with a quote from founders of motivational interviewing, Miller and Rolnick, which recap beautifully this part and also give us a glimpse on how we can deal with this problem when we work with our clients in the future. There is something about the human nature that resists being coerced and told what to do. Ironically, it is acknowledging the other's right and freedom not to change that sometimes make the change possible. Thank you very much for watching and looking forward to see you in the third part.